7 million sold worldwide. Freedom, write your own story. You know, it's a piece of American history where you're in control.
グランドセフトオートシリーズのロックスターゲームスが送る西部開拓時代を舞台にしたオープンワールドのアクションアドベンチャー大作レッドデッドリデンプションがついにこの10月日本上陸。今作でプロデューサーを務めたリッチ・ロサド氏のインタビューとあの洋芸冒険家によるさすらいのプレイ映像からその魅力に迫る。まずは日本語版が発売された現在の心境を聞いてみた。
Oh, very well. I couldn't feel any better about it, to be honest. You know, this wasn't time that I think we just added for the sake of adding it. A lot of care went into this localization, and looking at it now between all the bugs that were fixed, between the type of localization that was done, we're very, very proud of this one. Oh, okay. It started about 4.5 years ago. We've always wanted to make a sequel to Red Dead Revolver, but the technology just wasn't there, and there's only so much you could have done on a PS2 a few years ago. And when the new hardware started coming out, and we started testing to see what we can do, the time was finally right. Like the hardware was finally there. The staff that we had to make the original Red Dead Revolver team, they were available at the time, so everything just made sense to finally get it done. Well, you know, the story, it's a pivotal part of American history. The period when we went from cowboys and horses to trains and automobiles. So, you know, from that point of view, it made for a very interesting point. It's probably one of the most important parts in American history, the big industrial revolution. And when people think back on American history as well, what do they think on? You know, some of the bigger heroes of America were the old cowboys of the West. So, you know, those two came together and we thought it made for a very compelling story.
そんなわけでウィッチさん、
お、どうも
今回はYouTube 上にアップされてる、
もう大好評いただいてるという噂の噂の動くニューヨーゲータイムス
のレッドデッド版っていう出張版でお送りしたいなと思っています。
そうだね、まあさすらいのガンマン編っていうことでね、まあレッドデッドの世界をこれからみんなでさすらっていこうと。みんなでって俺一人だけどさ何がすごいって夜明けがすごいですね、このゲームはね。すごい夜明けを見てみたいと思うんでございます。まだね夜です。こっち月出てます。ちょっとしばらく1分ぐらい待っててみてくださいねあ、来ましたね。ああいいね。お酔っ払いが通ったおお刺してますね。
本当ですね。
すごいでしょこれ。俺はこれを見た時感動しましたね。これを見るだけでもね本当起動する価値がありますよ。本当にすごいですよ。そうサボテンとかさパームツリーとかさ、あこっちでも見てる親父がいた
どっかじゃあもう一箇所ぐらい上さん。
そうだね。
You getting cute with me, boy?
Calm down.
So to talk about John Marston for a moment. So going from what I just told you before, it's, you know, we have this cowboy named, well, John Marston. And here's a guy, he went around with a bunch of outlaws, unable to cope with changes, as well as with a few other background stories. He decides to settle down on a farm and raise a family. So knowing he was part of this gang, this government agency approaches Marston and asks him if he would help them bring his old friends in. And he refuses. So they take his family into custody for being associated with a known outlaw. And they tell him he'll get his family back if he will find and kill his old friends. So our story is that of choices. And Marston has to choose between his two families, which is the old group he used to run with for almost all his life, or his family now of his wife and his son. And there's some very tough choices he must make throughout the game. And these are the type of choices that the player will experience through Marston's eyes.
そんな重厚なストーリーが本筋ではあるが、ゲーム中何をするのもプレイヤーの手に委ねられている今作。西部開拓時代の世界を再現するにあたり、どのような苦労があったのだろうか。同じくロックスターゲームズの代表作であるグランドセフトオートシリーズと比較して聞いてみた。
Yeah, this was tougher than GTA 4.
多分 グランドセットオート4より苦労して。
You have GTA 4 and you have all these really big buildings, right? The good thing about having those buildings is we could hide things behind there. Like there might be nothing behind a building, and when you turn the corner, people will pop up. We get to draw them in. Yeah, so now you take these buildings away, and you have to see miles and miles and miles away, and see like a horse all the way in the distance. These are things we can't fake anymore. You have to draw it, and you have to find clever ways with the architecture to make it all work and be convincing. Plus, we had to create AI for many different behaviors, not just people anymore. There's people and there's wildlife, there's animals as well. And this proved to be a lot more difficult as well. There's just more behaviors to stream that takes up more CPU and more memory. These are very intensive aspects we just didn't have to deal with before.
馬車に乗っていきましょう。じゃあ
馬車に。
馬車は GTA でいうとこのタクシーと同じなんで、まあ、お金もあるんで、急いでない時はやっぱこれが一番いいね。楽だね。金かかるけどさ、これちょっとメキシコのね、この荒野を見てほしいんですよ。風景を楽しむのもね、このゲームの楽しみの一つだと自分でやんなくていいしね。完全な人工的な都市の究極の形がリバティシティだとしたら、この大自然のね究極の形がレッドデッドなんじゃないかと思いますね、特にレッドデッドはやっぱその自然に見えるってことがこう不自然じゃないっていう意味じゃないですか。不自然じゃなくこういうものをね人の手によって作り上げるっていうのはこれ大変な、
そうですよね、
技術と努力とセンスが問われる作業だと思うんだよね。名所修道院にちょっと行ってみましょうか。これほどのねありがたさみたいな、ね、慈愛のようなものが染みてる場所はなかなかないなと思いました。
ここですか？
ここですね。ちょっとね走っていくのも品がないですからこれゆっくり歩いて余裕で行きたいと思います。じゃあちょっと行ってみましょう。おーって感じだ。
あんまりでも飾り気っていうかもないですね。
ない。
空気感が
空気感がこのねなんか乾いた感じがねすごいんだよね。
ここでいつも懺悔をなさってると。
そう、今日はすごい100人ぐらい殺しちゃったよ俺、ね、マリアさんは許してみたいなこんな感じでね。なるほど。
Plants, guns, animals, environments, layout, everything. There's nothing in there that's not authentic to that period and that part of the world. And that part of the world being South Texas and North Mexico. So if you take some time to research, you'll see that they're right.
ロサト氏が言うように、この世界に存在するあらゆるものが綿密なリサーチのもとに作られている。特に馬の表現については我々の想像以上の時間と労力が割かれたという。
They smelled, and we had to drag them into a motion capture studio, and we spent many hours working on these horses. The game's about 30 hours. You're gonna spend 20 hours staring at a horse's ass. It better look good. Everything. The hardware these days is very good. PS3, 360, very good hardware. So you can build these environments, and it's not overly difficult to build an open world environment. It's really difficult making a convincing one. It's not overly difficult making a big environment. Now that you have this environment, what do you do in it? How do you make it compelling? And besides the missions that you lay out, you have to have these activities for players to do, and it can't feel staged. It all has to feel like it's part of a city, part of a world. And it's aspects like that we once again took a lot of effort to try and stage these events that you're walking down the street and something random like that might happen and make you go like, oh wow, that's cool.
山の方に来ましたけど、トールツリーズというエリアに来ました。
雪ですか？
雪です。かなり上の方に来ましたね。お、野良馬じゃないあれ。
野良馬。
おっしゃ。よっと。
これ今アナログスティック。
アナログスティックでこう左右で、乗りこなすと自分の馬になります。でこの野良馬をねいっぱい捕まえることによってね、馬が買えるようになるリストが増えるんですね。新しい馬が加わるとリストに新しい馬を捕まえたとか、おーっしゃ、
ものにしました。
ものにしました。
もう言うこと聞くんですか？
もう言うこと聞きます。もう俺の言いなりですこれでどうしたどうした、なんであ、馬泥棒だ
背中になんでめちゃくちゃ打ち込まれてましたね。
許さないでしょこの野郎。いや、このねちょっと晴れ間が覗いてる感じ見て見て。おおおお、
すごいですね。
すごいよね。うお、また来ちゃったね。うわーうわー、クマに襲われた。あけどらの馬死んでるし、ああ、クマ落ちてったね。
びっくりしました。
今超驚いた。鳥だね。
あ、飛び立つのか。
うわー、
大丈夫ですか？
大丈夫。あー、危ない危ない危ない危ない危ない危ない。
恐ろしい。
おお、またぎあー。
Well, the first part, we have the free roam. And the free roam is meant to be almost a very large playground for you and 15 other people. So, you know, the idea is, you know, if you take this time to build this world, it's like, well, let's have you run around with a bunch of friends. Just do whatever you want. It's fun, little, exciting, almost miniature, massively multiplayer game, if you will. Something a little more with rules, if you will. Then we have the game types, the playlist, like we have Slayer, which is like a death match, and we have like team death matches, our versions of Capture the Flag as well. So we have different playlists for you and either strangers or friends to play if you just don't want to do the free roam. Obviously we want to keep adding to the multiplayer and the single player experience. So from the multiplayer experience, we have new character models, like characters from the first Red Dead Revolver will be available to play as. We have co-op packs, so you and 3 other friends could play missions together. And you know, and down the road, and something we're still working on back home is a pack called The Undead Nightmare that has you know, Marston dealing with a very different kind of enemy. So the hope is that with every expansion that you play, hopefully it introduces a whole new experience based on the theme of that expansion.
じゃあやっぱ戦闘がね、みんな見たいと思うんで、
なるほど。
レッドデッドのその戦闘というのをね見せましょう。今アークインドのアジトに向かってます。雷だ。一人でね、たった一人でね、馬にも乗らず来たね。ウォルトンキャンプ団を片付けろ。
おお、これサブミッション的なものが発生。
そうだね。
もう始まってますね。
始まったよ。もうおっ始まったよ。やっぱりリボルバーだよな、やるんだったら。イエス。
お、また
来た。
この鳥は
死体の匂いを嗅ぎつけて集まったハゲタカですよ。さあこの去り際を撮ってよ。これかっこいいでしょこれ。
今撮ってます。ハゲタカが舞う中、雨も降る中、一人で おでまあ一件落着と
一件落着っていうね。何を一件落着したのか分かんないんだけどさ、なんかもういい気分になって終わってるんだよね。
どうなんですかこれまだやってないプレイヤーというか。
ああ、やっぱ見どころ今日見せたけど、やっぱ風景、まずあれにやられるね。現時点で多分最高峰のオープンワールドのゲームだと思います。これは間違いなく言えます。
やってそうな人
やらない方が損でしょ。
Well, it's tough. I think for every gamer, really, kind of the whole thing, but most notably the story is mentioned earlier. And as you mentioned, it's something we became aware of. A lot of people started importing the game. And they ride around for a while, go, okay, this is cool, but sometimes they miss the point. And this is, I think, the first time that they can actually sit down, get that whole world in context, where everything just makes sense. And hopefully the right motivation to keep playing will be there now that they can understand what's happening. We understand these games are very expensive, and we're asking a lot from game players to say, spend the, 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 yen, whatever it is, to play our game. That's asking a lot. So from my point of view, I think we're giving something to the audience here that's both unique and a very complete experience. And the hope is that you do take a chance with it, and that hopefully through your experience you learn to trust our label more and more, so that all you have to do now is just see the label and you know that it's quality and you can take that chance.